Did you know that the mixed-use building at the corner of Lawrence Street in downtown, if you took 2/3 of that building, cut off 1/3 of it, that what is left would equal the 40-acre AIken Mall in value? My name is Joe Minicozzi, and I am the principal of Urban3 based in Asheville, North Carolina. And what you'll learn in this presentation is value point, but also you'll learn the value of your community in AIken, and you'll see in this model that's before you the total productivity of your city and the value of downtown. You'll learn much more about the value of downtown to your community, to your county, but this will all be explained in this presentation. Am I talking loud enough that you all can hear me? I'm going to go through a lot of economic data. It's going to be highly nerdy, but I'm going to start with a little bit of maybe a preamble of where I come from. I'm from Asheville. Y'all know Asheville, but a lot of people don't know this where we've come from. We're a great setting up in the mountains, bluegrass music. We're 90,000 people. We have 40 breweries at this point. It's kind of a little crazy, a little out of control. We must drink a lot. We have men dressed as nuns on tall bikes that eat fire. When people come to Asheville, they see this place. But what they don't know, or a lot of people don't remember, is this place. This is downtown Asheville in the 1970s. Asheville fell flat on its face. In the 1920s, we had the highest debt per capita of the entire United States, and we chose to pay it off. So it took us until 1976 to pay off that debt obligation. And one of the reasons why you see these buildings is because we were too poor to tear them down. So we didn't do urban renewal the way that a lot of other places did. We just basically mothballed our downtown and just left it to rot. That's a 1996 Chevy Celebrity right there, so that's not too long ago. Our community's attitude toward its downtown was to just walk away from it. We were rural mountain people. We're not urban. We're not from Savannah or Charleston. We're Asheville. We basically got a low self-confidence. I worked for this guy's company. This is Julian Price. He started a for-profit real estate development company called Public Interest Projects, which is a...
Could you speak into the mic?
Sure. Yeah, not a problem. Does that work? Is this on? Are we good?
There we go.
Yeah, sorry. Julian he basically inherited a bunch of money, $15 million, and put into a for-profit real estate development company. 75% of the money went into sticks and bricks, fixing buildings, and 25% were starting businesses. So our strategy was to get housing downtown, but we focused on things like the first vegetarian restaurant, the Orange Peel nightclub, making stuff happen downtown, small businesses. Let's see if I can get the clicker working from here. Come on now. Actually, it's all right, I'll get it. I'll just move the mic. So, this is one of our buildings before and after, and it was basically an old hotel building that we rehabbed and made housing. But one of the things that we found ourselves constantly doing was having community conversations about what does our work mean for the rest of the city? What does it happen as a downtown development project? What does it mean for the entire county, if you will? So we talk about data or the buildings as products. So when you talk to farmers all talk in economic terms. What's the crop yield per acre, the water per acre, the labor, all of that. So what does one of our buildings do? So this is ground story retail, second floor office, and upper story residential. This is an old JCPenney's department store. We wouldn't have done this project if it weren't for the city starting to do a lot of the downtown revitalization, streetscape projects, stuff like that. So we took the taxable value from $300,000. The city invested in the streetscape project. Our tax value by doing this grew by 3,500%. So when I talk to folks in our community, this is an object that was paying taxes, and now it's paying 3,500% more taxes. So do you have a 401k plan that grows by 3,500%? This is all of our community's wealth that grows. Go out and buy 3,500% more garbage cans. We don't care. This is about understanding how one project could actually help everybody in the community. Pushback that we got in our community, people would say, well, Joe, that's $11 million. We've got this Walmart at $20 million. So fair enough, that's double the value of that, right? But you have to realize that it took 34 acres of my community to make that happen versus our 0.2 acres. So to look at the gross number, you're missing an understanding of the economic productivity. So per acre, our building's producing 100 times more property taxes. It's producing double the retail taxes. Obviously, we have residents and they don't. And we also have a lot more jobs. So by putting the data down in an apples to apples way, you can see what's more productive than that. And this isn't to fault Walmart. This is just to understand the economics of what's happening with your land use choices. So I just went through a little bit of math there, and I want you to realize this isn't complex stuff. This is like 5th grade division, and it's just using your land component as a sacred element, right? That you only have so much land. And when I talk to people about economics, we all have biases in the way that we look at economics. And so just to reframe it for a second, could you imagine if I was saying, you know, I've got a Ford F-150, it gets 650 miles per tank. You'd immediately laugh at me, and you're like, Joe, come on now, that's silly. All tanks are different sizes. We say miles per gallon to understand efficiency. That's how we gauge cars, because all tanks are different sizes. We say miles per gallon, the numbers just changed, and we should all be driving BMW Setas at 70 miles per gallon. Sorry to any Prius people, but this is more efficient, a 1955 little car. It's also very dangerous. If you have a head-on this thing, you're stuck. It's cute, though. You know, it just, we understand efficiency of gas, so let's just understand the efficiency of land. So in talking with the city, you know, you're essentially a board of directors of a finite boundary of land that has to be managed as an economic model. That's what cities are, as an economic engine. And if you look up the word incorporate in the Oxford American Dictionary, it says to constitute a company, a city, or other organization as legal corporation. So by law, you have a charter, you have a board of directors, your citizens are shareholders in this corporation, and it has to function. And it's not to say that it's a capitalist corporation, it's a social corporation. Your city, your county, your state, our country. Joe Biden said this on the Stephen Colbert Show in 2016, the United States is the largest corporation in the world. And I was such a nerd, I'm not making this up, at midnight I looked it up, and there it is. That's the US code that lists us as a federal corporation. That's what our country is. This is our form of government. So economics is a critically important part of understanding how cities grow. So in my city, I think we're $14 billion of taxable value. My city's worth 7 times Ted Turner. And I know my politicians in my community, and I say to them all the time, why are we making decisions based off of what's on Facebook or what people are complaining about? Why aren't we looking at data first and helping our citizens understand this? Would Ted Turner just look at Facebook and make decisions? No. You need to have data to understand this. Just one last project that we did in Asheville that's related to this. Our company did a mixed-use project. And if y'all have been to Asheville, the Aloft project, this used to be a surface parking lot. If you've been to Asheville 10 years ago, the sunken parking lot that was across the street from Barley's Pizza. So there it was. Nothing to write home about, but we actually owned this parking lot and we're renting out those spaces. So we knew what the demand was around the space because we were cash flowing it. And hotel developers kept on approaching us to buy our parking lot. We kept on saying no. The orange peel is just over here. We own the orange peel too. And we saw the cash register receipts of who was coming into Asheville from Charlotte or Atlanta or wherever here to come to our music. So why not stay on our block? And again, this is nothing to write home about. It was a hot dog joint in a surface parking lot. So we got with the hotel developer. The hotel did the hotel. We're going to do housing on the backside, and then eventually there'll be a third building sitting over the top of this thing. And then this is a public parking garage that everybody's going to be able to use. So when we started doing this, it was kind of funny that it was like the 75-page legal agreement, and my boss is an attorney, and I was like, Pat, no one's going to read I don't know if there's any city attorney in here. They may read the document, but for most people, it's not fair to give them a 75-page document. We're just like, let's just make a cartoon of what it looks like. So this is the city's fee simple. They own that parking garage. They have an easement under our building. We own fee simple here, jump across the top and step down over here. And then this is all the hotel and the air rights that they have over the parking garage. So this is basically who owns what. And what we're doing is we're wrapping taxes around a non-taxable thing. That parking garage can be used by everybody, but we're gonna have taxes all around it. This took 4 years to get this approved. We got treated as fat cat developers in the newspaper. No offense to newspaper people, but we're just like, really? We're trying to help our community, but this is the bias. And incidentally, this wasn't actually the main newspaper. This was the independent magazine in Asheville. But we took our lumps and moved on. Here it is, almost finished. The housing just got finished. This was 2019 that I did this presentation, but here's the taxes we paid in 2008 on that property. And it's not even finished, and this is what we paid in 2018 in taxes. So our community got 3,000% more taxes off this property by doing this project. I'm showing you something that was a little bit painful for me to present to my community. It was at the State of the Downtown address. And I was irritated because we produced this wealth to help our community understand how to grow wealth. So I was trying to make a point that, okay, let me just show it to you in a different way. This is 11,500 compared to 300,000. So as a citizen in our community, this is how we grow wealth. And we're doing it collaboratively. Incidentally, we could have just sold to the hotel developer and walked away. We didn't need to do this project. We could have, if we sold our dollar and invested it in other downtown real estate, we would have doubled our money over that same period of time of 10 years, right? Or we could put our money in NASDAQ and tripled our money. So we didn't want to just grow our wealth for ourselves. We wanted to grow our community's wealth together. So this is what my community got out of it. It actually keeps going. So we were able to leverage our opportunity, work collaboratively with the city, and also raise tax value and revenues for our community. The city's going to pay off the bond in 10 years. So that means it's a 20-year bond. From year 10 to 20 is straight gravy to the city. And this was an example of an opportunity of how to grow wealth in a catalytic project downtown. So we've done this all across the country, our analysis, and it's real simple. For every dollar of county taxes somebody is paying per acre to the county in taxes, their brother or sister in the city is paying about 5 times that to the same county. Here's the Walmart, there's the mall. That's a 2-story building, a 3-story building, and a 6-story building. So you start to see this wealth that you get out of that core of your community. As you stack stories, you stack your dollar bills. Incidentally, a lot of people look at this and they say, well, Joe, you just hate Walmarts. It's funny, and I guess I use them a lot in my presentation, but I presented at the International Association of Tax Assessing Officers Conference. Is a tax assessor in here? I don't know if y'all hang out with your tax assessors, but could you imagine 3,000 of them? It was probably the squarest conference I've ever presented at. It makes a planning conference feel like Burning Man or something. But this guy got up and presented at 8:30 in the morning this incredible spreadsheet on how cheap Walmarts are to all the assessors in the entire country. Think of how brilliant that is. One meeting, 3,000 assessors, he's getting all of his property tax bills lowered in one meeting. Right? Cheap building, low property value, low property taxes. That's smart. Now, I'm trained as an architect, so as somebody who's trained as a designer, I was having a coronary because I'm like, how is he getting away with this? Why does no one care? You know, I care about buildings in my community. And the reason why no one cares is because they're assessors. It's agnostic. If it's a cheap building, it's a cheap building. They can't make more value. So I went up to the microphone and I asked him, I said, Mr. Terrell, what's the useful life of one of your buildings? And he honestly shot back. He goes, 15 years, maybe 20. We designed the building to depreciate it as fast as possible. We'll build another one and depreciate it down again. We don't care about the buildings, they're throwaway. This is your community. These are your buildings. The tax system is really simple. If you have a property value tax system, the cheaper the building, the lower the taxes, period. There's an incentive to build junk in our communities. So just be aware of that this isn't an invisible market. So the useful life of a Walmart is 15 years, which is the life cycle of a cat. This is a joke, you can laugh at it. At least we mourn the passing of a cat, right? So be aware of this system, that you're actually working against a system that's undermining your community's wealth. And that's the property tax system. And go into it with your eyes wide open. So what we try to do is show people how this operates. And if I can show you your brain and how your brain works, and your brainstem activity is in blue, and your creative thought process is this neon yellow stuff, if that's how my brain operates, and I can take a picture of it, can I do the same thing with your economics? Can I show you how your economic condition operates? So let me give you an example, back to my community. This is Buncombe County. This is my entire county, 450 square miles. Non-taxable is in gray, so this is Mount Mitchell right here. It's part of the Blue Ridge Parkway, and this is Mount Pisgah. Non-taxable. So don't pay taxes, I don't care about it. I got green and low value, purple and high value. So you can see the low value up here, and this is the Biltmore estate, that big purple splotch. The Biltmore estate is worth $100 million for one house. Happens to be the largest house in America, 180,000 square feet. Anybody in this room have a 180,000 square foot house? No? It's on 8,000 acres of land. So that's the biggest gas tank in my community. So yes, it's going to be the most valuable. So rather than see things that way, let's show the productivity and show you the value per acre. Different map. And I'll just show it to you in 3D. Anybody want to guess where downtown Asheville is? Boom, this big purple mountain right there. And then what's cool about this is I can see my whole county. I can see my cousins out here in Black Mountain. You can see their little downtown. And now, in my community, we have a political issue where I've got 2 voters out in the county for every 1 voter in the city. They actually hate on my city. They got our state legislator to call us a cesspool of sin one year, which is super awesome. But for folks out in Fairview, they have no idea what we're paying in county taxes. So we show it to them. So rather than hate on us, rather than call us the cesspool or whatever, how about a thank you card for all the revenue we're creating in county property taxes? Now remember, we're all paying the same county property tax rate, 6 mils. So rather than hate on us, send us a box of chocolates, maybe a thank you card. We're more than happy to spread wealth in our community, but don't undermine your golden goose. There it is, right there. So we use these models as a way to explain that to folks. But first we have to understand your tax system. So for us, I'm in North Carolina, our tax system is different from y'all. We basically have a market value with some moderate level of exemptions to get a tax value, and then we're in charge of the mill rate at the local level. So what you tax on that to get your tax bill. For y'all, you have a fair market value, which is your market rate. You have an assessment ratio that separates how you tax things. This is actually the important step right here to get your assessed value, but this is what you have control over, the millage rate, to get your tax bill. Incidentally, what you have in South Carolina that we don't have in North Carolina is you tax second home people and out-of-state ownership differently than you tax locals. We don't have that in North Carolina. We probably should. But that's a real big problem in Asheville when we have people that cash flow vacation rentals at the same tax rate that I'm paying for my house, and it's a critical problem right now. But anyway, when you look at the assessment ratio, you're assessing 6% of the commercial building, only 4% of the residential. So that's a tax break for being a resident. That's just baked into your state tax system. So just be aware of that. You're charging more on commercial than residential. Does that make sense? So about 1.5 times more when you do the math on that. So even though these are small numbers, 1.5 times more for commercial. Just think of it that way. So if your assessed value of $100,000 is going to be $6,000 or $4,000, so that's what you're running your tax bill on. Here's your city's tax rate. Here's your county's tax rate, which is a little bit more than the city's tax rate. And then, just to be clear, your school system is actually way more. It's actually both of those combined. So you're big producers for your school system in your tax bill. So for the citizens out there, when you see your tax bill, just think the majority is going to the school system, not your city or your county. And then you have an additional tax rate of 0.4 mils that's put on for, I guess it's retiring debt or smaller projects or different target areas, depending on where it is. So your total tax rate is about 3.4 mils. So the tax bill on $100,000 of a $100,000 commercial property would be about $2,000, and for residential it'd be about 1.4 thousand. So basically there's where the 1.5 times comes out, if y'all follow me. This is the basics of how your tax system works. Where that money goes, this is the school district's take on $100,000 of residential. $600 of that tax would go to the school district. Here's the city, the county, and then other. And then you do have some exemption. Your school taxes were exempted and then replaced by sales tax by the state. It's another quirk. But basically, just bear in mind, this is the city's portion of that money, just to go through the basics of that. Where it goes into your budget, this is how you get all of your money. You actually get a fair share out of your business licenses. So again, in addition to property tax, which is this big pie down here, a big chunk of that, at 1.5 times, is coming out of the commercial. The commercial is also paying an additional business tax on top of that. So be mindful of what your business community produces for your city. It's actually quite handsome in its growth. Then here's their hospitality tax, accommodation tax. So generally speaking, this whole quadrant right here is business. Sales taxes is obviously coming from residents or people like me, a tourist that comes into town and buys something. That's helpful. Because we have this chart, I just want to show you where you're at. This is local taxes. Your property tax is the red. This is sales tax, and this is other. This is how you function your local government. When I say local, I'm saying city and county combined. When you look at the different states and how they operate, generally when you go northeast, most of the states operate predominantly off property tax. As you head south, you see a lot of sales tax in here. You generally don't want to be with Alabama and Arkansas, where they run most of their communities off sales taxes, because think of when a recession hits, you're not going to buy a boat, you're not going to buy a TV, or in your community, you're not going to buy a horse. So when you don't have that huge transaction, you actually lose money at a local level, so you can't actually afford your government. It's very destabilizing when you're down over here. So you're kind of in the middle, you're in a good spot. So into your land analysis, here's your county at a total value standpoint. So you see by 20, huge values of property. Again, non-taxable in gray, this is the Savannah site, low value in green, high value in purple. From total value to value per acre. Now you start to see North Augusta and then AIken right here. And then here y'all are in 3D. So this is showing you your relative productivity. You don't have what we have. Our cities sprawl out into the counties more than you do. So you have a pretty tight sphere of cities here in your community. And not, even though 20 is a main artery, if you even look at North Augusta, it's not producing a whole lot of wealth with all that development on the north side of North Augusta. The core is still producing, the same with your core, although you all have a little bump. We'll get into that. So let's look at you guys. This is, again, your total value, and then your value per acre. So the golf course actually shows up in total value pretty good, but then once you divide it into the amount of land that it consumed, it's not all that great. And then you can see the heat of your downtown right there, and here you are in 3D. So the villages at Woodside actually pop up pretty well here in value, and then downtown, and then a couple parcels over at Augusta Aiken Road, but the larger parcels don't really produce a whole lot of wealth there. I'm going through a lot of information. We'll have this as a slide for you all, or a PDF printout. I'm just going to show you these. Getting into your downtown, total value, value per acre. The heat shifts over here to into the southwest corner, and here's your downtown in 3D. Obviously, you can see how you flatten out as you head east here, and there's a lot of different reasons for that. Just looking at your profile, if you take the whole city and kind of flatten it, or the whole county, North Augusta's got some stuff you can learn from here in this high pop-up, but also in what they're doing. But you're not doing bad. This is actually a nice little mountain that you have of value right here in your downtown, and you can see how it's not just heads and shoulders above everything else. It's like leaps and bounds above everything else, which is good.
Do you mind if I interrupt?
Yeah.
Did you take a historical look at that? Did you go back in time at all?
No, sir. That'd be an interesting thing. It wasn't part of our scope, but we've done that with other cities where we saw how far back or when did those transitions happen. This is just your current, I think is the 2020 tax year. Because we have your data, we're going to go ahead and run through some basics. Taxable, non-taxable. Your county is about 15% non-taxable. This is a big swath of it right there. Your city is about 13% non-taxable, and your downtown is about 15% non-taxable. To give you an idea of rough numbers, there's no magic to this number. There's not a perfect number. It's just more to be aware of this. You're going to have city buildings, churches obviously are non-taxable. And you're talking about expanding your downtown, so we looked into what if you did the expansion area. You're going from 15% non-taxable to 13%. You're actually dropping down because you're adding more taxable real estate down here. As a comparison, we compared you against Anderson, South Carolina, and to show you, so y'all are at 15% there, going down to 13%. Anderson's at 35% non-taxable. Asheville is at 44% non-taxable. So, it could be worse. And it's not to say that it's bad to have government buildings. It's important to have your city hall here. But it's more to just be aware of that as a metric. If you have a bunch of surface parking lots that are municipally owned, that takes that revenue opportunity off the table. So to stack you against Anderson, you're a lot less. And that could be to Anderson's, the county seat. It has some federal buildings in the downtown as well, and museums downtown. But since we had the data, this is the county, Anderson County against Aiken County, the city, and then the downtown. In our city in Asheville, because we have a university, we're at 30% non-taxable at the city level. So you're about average with Anderson as a comp. Does that make sense? So as a ratio of productivity, the city is a shareholder of the county. So you take up about 2% of the county's footprint. So y'all are Aiken County taxpayers. You're producing about 27% of the county's property taxes. So as a ratio of productivity, that's a 1 to 15 ratio of productivity. Do y'all follow me? For every square mile of this stuff, this is its punch in the budget, which is a pretty good return to the county. So whatever you produce in the city is actually going to produce wealth in the county because they're getting property taxes as well. When you look at the city, your downtown is a shareholder of the whole city, is only 2% of the city's total footprint, is producing 3% of the city's property tax budget. That's a 1 to, let's call it a 1 to 2 ratio. This is, even though your downtown is doing quite well, this is a little on the low side. Asheville is a 1 to 6 ratio. Brevard, North Carolina is a 1 to 6. We generally see it around a 1 to 5 to 1 to 6 ratio. So that means you have some opportunity to grow your downtown out. But to be fair, you also have a lot of high value down here that raises the title mark of this. Again, not a perfect number, we just wanted to give you the data point. And now to do the same thing for the downtown to the county, and it barely even shows up, it's just a little dot right there. This is the footprint of downtown in the county, and this is its punch in the county's tax base. These don't look like huge numbers, but when you run the ratio on that, it's insane. It's 1 to 25 ratio of productivity. Really simply, whatever you do in the downtown is going to be good value growth for your city, but it's going to be incredible for the county. You know, does the county pay for a sidewalk or a dog park downtown or the alley closure? I don't know. You know, so work with your county and then cooperate with this. Their investment in the downtown will grow many times over. And then just looking, because y'all are there's basically 2 prime cities in the entire county, and you're killing it. 4% of land area, 40% of the county's tax base is coming out of just 2 places, which is huge. So just be mindful of that. That's a pretty cool return. Now to go through some of the examples of buildings, we always start with the Walmart because everybody's got one. It's like the Big Mac index or something. Y'all got 2. We just averaged the 2 of them together. Your average Walmart's about 600,000. I'm going to go ahead and keep that on the slide down here, and it's going to be on every slide going forward so you can see how different building types stack up against a Walmart. We'll start with your residential. Taking your single family average, low density residential detached, it's producing about a half a Walmart in production. From a value standpoint, at about 262,000 an acre. When you get into multifamily, it jumps up. Now we're at like 750,000, 1.5 million, 1.1 million, 3.5 million, 5.6 million an acre for that, and 8.3 million an acre for that. And remember, your single family detached was 260,000. So that's highly productive. And then you get into the mixed use buildings downtown that still have residential in it, 7.3, 7.8, and then this is 16.1 million an acre for that 4-story building right there. And then this one is just kind of obscene, probably a little bit of an anathema. This housing at the baseball field site down in North Augusta, it's killing it at 57 million an acre of value. But it's also a special project for what it is. But it's still, that's the big purple spike sticking up in North Augusta. There's a term that you've probably heard. It's called missing middle. It's very topical in planning conversation. But we used to build cities that had this kind of transition zone of going from single family detached to the downtown stuff. A lot of zoning codes eliminated this stuff, but it used to be a natural part of how cities grew. In older neighborhoods, you still find some of these buildings, the townhouses, the bungalow courts, duplexes and triplexes, all mixed into the housing. But zoning, we've sort of made them illegal. But you all have some of these. You're actually starting to build some new ones, which are great. So be aware of this. This is at York Street. This is a little multifamily building at 1.1 million. And again, 5.6, 8, and 16 million. Highly productive. So here's where they are in the model. This big purple spike right here is the one at the baseball field, which is an outlier. But when you look at these buildings, these aren't huge buildings, but they're super productive in the model. So we pointed them out where they're at. Going from residential to commercial, again, starting with the Walmart down here at 600,000. Target is a little bit less than that. The Lowe's is less than that. You get into the mall. The mall is only $98,000 an acre. The mall's suffering, but it's also incredibly, it's a huge property that's no value. These little guys, this one right here, over on Park Avenue, $3.3 million an acre for that little, would you think that that was $3.3 million an acre in production? How many more times value is that than the mall at, let's call it 100,000? So it's like this thing is 3 times the mall in potency. This little guy right here is 5.5 million. So you can see these commercial examples are all around you from a potency standpoint. This is 4.7 million, 11 million an acre. Sorry, so that, oops, 2 hotels, 2 totally wildly different values. But that's, these are still both potent. So some examples, if you had 1.6 acres, so a little bit more than 1.5 acres of that guy, this little stuff, it would equal the 13.4 acre Silver Bluff strip mall with the Ross and TJ Maxx, the power center. So you could achieve the same value that you've taken with 13 acres on 1.5 acres. As you do more projects in your community, think about rewarding the ones that produce wealth for you, the stuff that's going to be giving you a lot of value for a little bit of land. 2.25 acres of the Connor & Connor Law Firm building would equal the 25-acre Walmart site in property tax value. If you cut this building in half by the baseball field over there, if you cut that building in half, it would equal the entire 11-acre Target site. And it's just stunning the value in that building. But again, it's a bit of an outlier because it's fairly unique. And then maybe more basic is if you had 2/3 of this building, basic if you lopped off that little section right there, that much of that building would equal the 40-acre mall. So think of the drain that has at 40 acres, just sitting there as an opportunity with all that road frontage, and you're paying for it. So thinking of your land economics from an analysis standpoint, I'm just going to take you on a little detour for a second. There's a lot of weird things inside the tax code. The weirdest thing that we see is usually related to land valuation. So with the GIS data, we can turn off all the buildings and just look at the land value per acre. So this is just dirt. So you expect the world to look like this. All of the residential up here is at same value at 15,000. This is Cheyenne, Wyoming. When I was presenting this, I was in a room like this, and I said to the community, why is this 15,000 an acre? And when you cross the street, it doubles in the same zoning category to 35,000. And the tax assessor raised her hand, and she just yells out, she goes, you don't understand. They have more land. The more land you have, the lower the value. There was like the same reaction in the audience. You could hear a pin drop. The mayor starts laughing. And I said, really, I get more of your land and you give me a discount? She goes, yeah, that's the way the tax system works. And I said, all right, I got 3 miles of infrastructure, of roads around here. This fellow's got 200 feet. She goes, we don't count infrastructure as part of the valuation. So I said, so you don't care about the money that you put into the ground. You don't ever want it back? She goes, that's not our standard. So one of the reasons why I was at the tax assessors conference was to ask them about these standards. And I asked them, I said, did Moses deliver you this tax code? Like, where did these standards come from? By the way, this joke killed them at the assessors conference. They thought this was great. If you put this stuff into the system, what am I incented to do as a real estate investor? I'm going to buy up the biggest parcels, and you're going to give me a tax discount for it. I'm going to blow through all of your infrastructure, and you're not going to charge me for it. The average Walmart consumes more in property taxes, or consumes more in police services than it pays in property taxes. We can ask your police department about that. How often are they at a Walmart doing calls? And then what's your staff time in that, and pair it against your police department budget. It's your property taxes. So realize that there's market forces that are baked into the system that are based off these weird little anomalies. So we did your land value per acre. This is just dirt, zooming into your 2 prime cities. You can see how, let's kind of get in a little bit closer here to just the city. You can see how the out parcels, the dirt, is way more valuable than the big parcels around it out by the mall out there. I mean, look at that compared to what's right there. So there's a bias baked into the system that's just a standard of how assessment works. Not going to say that you can change that, but just be aware that that's baked into your economic model. But the dirt value of your downtown is doing quite well, especially the neighborhoods around it. So that's in the value. Again, you can see, or sorry, here's the AIken Mall, and then there's the out parcels there, and the dirt value of the mall and the out parcels. So it's kind of getting through that. The downtown, this is your dirt value, high amount of dirt value here, and then it precipitously drops off as you head east. There are some weird anomalies, like why would the dirt value here be so much more than what's on the same block? And this is a conversation to maybe have with your county assessor. And in the assessor's defense, they don't look at the world this way with these models. So use this as like a printout of an Excel spreadsheet for them. They operate in Excel spreadsheet world. They don't look at it visually like this. So from a land use standpoint, I'm going to make this final point before we get into your models. This is a model of Indianapolis, Indiana, their entire county. This is their buildings and what they use for buildings and what they use for surface parking. And so about 30% of their county is surface parking. When you have surface parking, it is incredibly consumptive from a valuation standpoint. So I'll just show their county in a different way. This is how they use their county from a land area standpoint, and water, obviously, they have some rivers. But basically, this is their city, this is everything else. This is berms, buffers, backyards, parks, whatever. They have roads, which are a liability, buildings produce revenue, parking produces hardly any. What's interesting to me is the parking is about the same area of footprint as the roads. When you look at the costs, however, roads cost them about $17 billion. The value of parking is only about $0.5 billion. So this does not cover the expense of that. So you have to raid your building fund to pay for the roads. Just be aware of that. You have to pay for those roads. Every 50 years, you have to rebuild your roads. When you drive on roads, they're not free. They cost you money. So here's the way that it works out in Marion County. This is Marion of Marion County in Indiana. She has about 1,200 square feet of buildings dedicated to her, 800 square feet of parking, and about 1,000 square feet of roads. When you look at it financially, these are the numbers. The buildings are pulling about $52 a square foot. Parking 75 cents a square foot. The road's going to cost you $22, or cost them $22 a square foot in front of the building, and $22 a square foot in front of the parking. So just do the math on this. This is paying 71 times more taxes than that, even though the cost is the same. That's a subsidy, right? If I cost the same to you all in your community, but you're charging me less in revenue, you've given me a tax break. So be aware of that. So taking half their taxes, 1% of their taxes, they have a 2% property tax. Taking half their taxes and putting into a savings account to pay off that, it takes 42 years for the building to pay off the road. It takes 3,000 years for the parking to pay off the road. So one of the problems that Indianapolis has is they've got way too much roads. This is spatial analysis. I know this joke only works for people over the age of 35, but they have enough roads to go from Indianapolis to Anchorage. That's how much roads they've built in their community. And they're wondering why they're broke. And it's because the money system doesn't allow them to catch up to it. So what they do is they cut services. They don't hire a police officer. They don't do a new fire station expansion. They don't have an after-school program, because that's a lot of roads to fix that they've built over time. So for you all, we did your analysis. In South Carolina, your road system is a little different. Your state has about half your road system in your city. Your city lane miles are out there, and then let's get your county, or sorry, privately roads and then county. You don't have a whole heck of a lot of county roads in your city, but about a little bit more than a third are city owned, or about 28%, about a third. So luckily in South Carolina, your state steps in, but your state can't continue to do this over time. We did an analysis of the South Carolina Infrastructure Bank, and it's pretty serious what you guys are in. But our state's very similar to yours, a lot of state roads in North Carolina as well. So for the growth standpoint, this is the site that we're looking at, this one block, the Newberry block, and there it is in the model. Here's the project that we're talking about and its growth and projection. Here's its current production. It's actually doing all right from a production standpoint. And then here are some of the buildings that are in the block and what their current valuation is inside there. So it's going to go from this at about peaking out at about 4.1 million at the top of the model. And come on now, it's going to grow from that. I'm going to move. I had to shrink it and move it out of the way because this is kind of insane. So you're going to go from 4.1 million up to about 27 million. That's the wealth growth that you're going to realize in your new development from a visual standpoint. Does that all make sense? You follow me? That's the bump that you get from that new building. It's going to be dense, it's going to be valuable, and you're going to realize a big spike out of it. So this is the new hotel. The new residential is in the 18s versus your 4 right now. And that the conference center is in there with the hotel as well. So here's your current market value, about $5.7 million for the block. It's projected to go up to $52 million, which is net positive growth of about $50 million, or 800% growth in this project on the existing block. And so again, you have nearby blocks that are doing well as well. The Park Ave block, the Pendleton block, and then the Newberry block are actually the 3 biggest, most potent blocks in your entire community. Park Ave block is actually number 1 at $3 million value per acre average. Coming in at number 2 is the Pendleton block, and Newberry block right now is number 3. When this project's done, it's going to go from this to this. So the Newberry block is going to take over and become 10 million and flip past the number 1. So this is you're bumping it up in value, and it's a pretty sizable jump right there. And the Park Avenue moves to number 2, and Pendleton moves to number 3. So here's the differences. We're going from $116 million block to $163 million, or sorry, downtown, to $163 million downtown, the total value of the whole downtown. So that's a 41% growth in downtown. This is your current taxes on the Newberry block. This is what it's going to produce. You're going to see about a $3 million jump in property taxes. And then just breaking it down in parking revenue, obviously you're going to get parking revenue that you currently don't have. You're going to see a bump in hospitality tax that you currently don't have. And you're going to see what is that, about a tenfold jump in accommodation tax after the project from today. Or looking 10 years out on your revenue, this is the bump that you're going to have 10 years out. And we grew your existing as if it just matriculated on your current trend. You're still going to see a much larger jump here at about 32 million. And I think that's all of the numbers. Just to close, our ethos is if you don't measure it, you can't manage it. You have to look at the numbers, understand how this stuff works, and how to grow wealth in your community, and also understand who you are. Aiken County is worth $14 billion, which means you can liquidate the county and go out and buy 5 Atlanta Falcons, or you can liquidate the city at $3.6 billion and still buy a couple, or 1.5. You may not want the Falcons, I don't know. But this is just I'm being silly a little bit. But I want to drive home the point about corporations. So we can look at the Falcons, and we know that Mr. Block knows Matt Ryan's towel bill. I can tell you the cups in our nightclub cost 5 cents a pop. Do you understand what a mile of road costs you? Or what a Walmart costs you in police services? You have to know these numbers to stay fiscally sound in your community. So be aware of these things. We call this practice geoaccounting. We're just putting numbers on a map and behaving like accountants. These are your community choices, much in the way that your accountant lets you choose what you do with your money. So, if your accountant's not going to complain if you buy a boat, right? Your accountant's going to complain if you can't afford a boat. So make sure that you're putting the numbers down to make your choices. We put them on maps so you can see this stuff. So moving forward, one is know your patterns. Know what's going on inside the valuation and what's going on with the development patterns and what's growing your wealth in your core area and how to use that to grow wealth in other areas or to help other communities. Know your costs and map them. Obviously, you have non-taxable land that's not going to produce. Be mindful of that, but also understand what you're paying down in infrastructure that you have to pay down perpetually. Thicken up. If you have a road with a vacant lot there, that's an opportunity to grow wealth too. Even small little projects could do that. So find ways in here to grow up wealth and help small businesses or whatever. You have an incredible downtown with small businesses. Keep doing more of that. You've already done something well here. This is showing you that. How do you expand that to the rest of your downtown? And then know the numbers. And then finally, TIF. A lot of people talk about TIF. We did Kansas City, Kansas. They do a lot of TIF in Kansas City because Kansas City spreads 2 different states, 11 different counties, and they're constantly doing TIF deals. And one of the things that we showed them in their model was that there's from the market value down to the taxable value. See how the model changes? And it's because residential is at 19% and commercial is at 32%. So you're paying double in commercial versus residential, much in the way that you guys are paying more if you're a commercial property owner versus a residential property owner. That is a TIF. When you charge me less taxes, that is a TIF. It's not conscious at a city level, it's done by your state. So just be aware of that, and as citizens realize that your state gave you a tax break for being a resident. That's awesome. But you have to pay for a city on a cash flow and how it operates. And I'll close with this. I work with a lot of people, and I don't know if y'all follow Strong Towns, but check out their work and their books. They go through a lot of what I went through here today is on this website, and I'm a big advocate of Chuck's work, and thanks for letting me do math.